As the Russo-Ukrainian War continues into its 1114th day, the battlefield dynamics remain complex and fluid, with significant developments influencing both military strategies and diplomatic efforts. The Ukrainian forces are currently under intense pressure in the Toretsk area, which has become a focal point for conflict amid ongoing discussions about potential ceasefires and military support from Western allies. Recent reports indicate that Ukrainian troops are conducting a partial withdrawal from Russia's Kursk Oblast after an extended operation lasting 218 days. This maneuver is credited with successfully redirecting approximately 60,000 Russian troops away from the critical Donbas region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has reaffirmed his commitment to the operations in Kursk, asserting that Ukrainian forces are still actively engaged and not encircled despite Russian advances and claims to the contrary. The situation near Pokrovsk has stabilized, but the buildup of Russian forces signals that Moscow is intent on prolonging the war. He stated, underscoring the ongoing challenges faced by Ukrainian troops. The geopolitical landscape is further complicated by recent virtual meetings convened by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer aimed at maintaining international support for Ukraine. Starmer described a coalition of the willing composed of around 25 nations, including major players from Europe, NATO and beyond, to discuss military and financial backing for Ukraine. In his opening remarks, Starmer emphasized the need to keep pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin, stating, if he is serious about peace, he must cease his barbaric attacks and agree to a ceasefire. This call to action highlights the urgency with which Western leaders are approaching the situation, particularly in light of the ongoing human toll of the conflict. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also reinstated military aid to Ukraine, a move that experts believe is pivotal in strengthening Ukraine's defensive capabilities. Reports suggest that Ukraine has developed a new missile system boasting a range of 1,000 kilometers, which could dramatically alter the tactical landscape. President Zelenskyy announced this advancement, noting, "We have tangible results, which could enhance Ukraine's ability to strike deep into enemy territory." Previously, Ukraine's longest-range munitions were the U.S.-supplied ATACMS with a range of approximately 300 kilometers. On the diplomatic front, tensions continue to rise as President Trump engages in dialogue with both Zelenskyy and Putin. Trump has expressed optimism about reaching a peace agreement, but has also drawn criticism for seemingly siding with Russian narratives regarding the war's origins. His comments have raised concerns among Ukrainian officials, with Zelenskyy accusing Putin of attempting to sabotage peace efforts while calling for increased American strength to pressure Russia into compliance. As the conflict unfolds, the stakes remain high. Analysts warn that the ongoing military pressures, coupled with the political maneuvers from both Ukraine and Russia, could lead to either a breakthrough in negotiations or further escalation of hostilities. The possibility of a ceasefire hangs in the balance, contingent on Russia's willingness to engage in genuine negotiations. The coming days and weeks will be crucial as international leaders continue to gather and strategize on how best to support Ukraine and push for a durable peace in the region. The global community watches closely, eager to see if diplomatic efforts can finally yield a cessation of hostilities and a pathway towards a stable resolution. As the Russo-Ukrainian War continues into its third year, the situation on the ground remains dire, with both sides engaged in an escalating cycle of drone warfare. Recent reports indicate that Ukrainian forces are feeling increasing pressure in the key city of Toretsk, while a new wave of drone attacks highlights the ongoing volatility of this conflict. On March 15, 2025, Russian officials announced the downing of 126 Ukrainian drones over the Volgograd and Voronezh regions, with defense ministry sources claiming that this was part of a broader defensive strategy following a significant Ukrainian offensive. The intensity of these aerial engagements underscores the shifting dynamics of the war as both nations have ramped up their drone operations. Ukraine, for its part, reported successfully intercepting 130 Russian drones during the same period, illustrating the ongoing tit-for-tat exchanges that have become a hallmark of this conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has publicly expressed support for a ceasefire. Yet he raised concerns about the feasibility of such an agreement without proper discussions with U.S. President Donald Trump. The Kremlin's reluctance to embrace a halt in hostilities suggests a commitment to sustaining military pressure, particularly as Ukraine continues to launch drone strikes deep into Russian territory, including a recent unprecedented assault on the Moscow region. The repercussions of these strikes have been severe. In a tragic incident in President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih, a Russian missile attack injured 14 civilians, including 2 children, and resulted in significant damage to residential buildings. These developments illustrate the war's toll on civilians and the ongoing humanitarian crisis that is exacerbated by military actions from both sides. As Dnipropetrovsk region head Sergei Lysak noted, 14 people were wounded, among them 2 children. Highlighting the indiscriminate nature of the violence that has plagued this conflict. Analysts suggest that the protracted nature of this war, now entering its 3rd year, has led to an increased reliance on drone technology as both sides seek to gain tactical advantages. The Institute for the Study of War noted that Ukraine's earlier operations in Russia's Kursk Oblast diverted significant Russian military resources and estimated 60,000 troops away from the front lines in Donbas, a testament to Ukraine's strategic adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. As international diplomatic efforts continue to push for a resolution to the 3-year conflict, the potential for a ceasefire remains uncertain. The current climate of mutual distrust and aggressive military posturing raises questions about whether peace talks can yield any meaningful results. The ongoing drone warfare illustrates that both nations are prepared to escalate hostilities even as they navigate complex geopolitical negotiations. Looking ahead, the situation in Toretsk and surrounding regions will be pivotal in shaping the future trajectory of the war. With both sides entrenched in their positions, the potential for further violence looms large. The international community is watching closely, as any shifts in military strategy or diplomatic engagement could have far-reaching implications not only for Ukraine and Russia but for global geopolitical stability. In a significant development regarding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed a conditional willingness to accept a ceasefire proposed by the United States, while simultaneously demanding guarantees that Ukraine would not mobilize troops or receive military aid during this period. Speaking at a press conference with Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko on March 13, Putin reiterated the Kremlin's stance, emphasizing the need for any cessation of hostilities to address the underlying causes of the war. His remarks reflect a continuation of Russia's maximalist approach, which includes demands for territorial concessions and Ukraine's pledge to neutrality. The backdrop of these discussions is a 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine has tentatively accepted, contingent on Russia's agreement to the same terms. The negotiations, which took place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, resulted in the U.S. reinstating vital military and intelligence support for Ukraine, support that had been suspended just days prior. Putin described the ceasefire idea as favorable but insisted that critical issues must still be addressed. The idea itself is good, and we support it, but there are a number of issues that need to be discussed, he remarked, indicating that Russia's conditions are far from insignificant. Putin's conditions reflect a broader strategy aimed at leveraging the ceasefire to solidify Russian gains. He claimed that Russia had regained control of over 86% of the territories it had seized in the Kursk Oblast, including the strategically important town of Sudza, which had previously been under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi acknowledged the challenging situation in the region but maintained that Ukrainian forces would continue to defend their positions as long as reasonable and necessary. The nuances of these negotiations were further complicated by reactions from U.S. President Donald Trump, who described Putin's comments as very promising but noted that they lacked completeness. Trump expressed his willingness to engage in further discussions with the Russian leader, highlighting the complex interplay between diplomacy and military strategy that characterizes the current geopolitical landscape. Amidst these diplomatic maneuvers, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy expressed skepticism regarding Russia's intentions, accusing the Kremlin of attempting to delay peace talks. He characterized Putin's approach as manipulative, indicating that Ukraine remains vigilant against potential new offensives, particularly along its eastern border where Russian forces are reportedly amassing. In parallel, British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has been active in rallying international support for Ukraine, hosting a virtual summit with around 25 world leaders to discuss a potential peacekeeping force and strategies for bolstering Ukraine's defenses. Starmer emphasized the need for sustained pressure on Russia, stating if Putin is serious about peace, it's very simple. He has to stop his barbaric attacks on Ukraine and agree to a ceasefire. His remarks underscore the urgency felt by many leaders in the international community as they seek to navigate the complexities of the conflict. As the situation evolves, the coming weeks could prove crucial. The international community remains watchful and the pressure on both sides to reach a sustainable resolution is palpable. Analysts suggest that while Putin's conditions may be seen as a tactic to buy time and secure strategic advantages, the resilience of Ukraine and the support it garners from allies will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of this conflict. The prospect of a lasting peace remains uncertain, but the discussions initiated in recent days highlight the potential for diplomacy amidst ongoing hostilities. As world leaders continue to convene, the outcomes of these negotiations will be closely scrutinized, with implications that could reverberate far beyond the borders of Ukraine. In a dramatic escalation of diplomatic tensions surrounding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called on the United States to impose maximum additional sanctions against Russia should it reject a proposed 30-day ceasefire. During a recent briefing in Kyiv, Zelenskyy characterized Russian President Vladimir Putin's responses as mere stalling tactics, suggesting that Moscow's professed support for a ceasefire is often accompanied by conditions that serve to prolong the conflict. The Russians say, for example, "We support a ceasefire, but..." And then after the "but" they start coming with various details to delay the process, Zelenskyy stated, underscoring the ongoing complexity of negotiations. His comments came amid a flurry of diplomatic activity, including separate meetings held by the Trump administration with both Ukrainian and Russian officials. While Ukraine has signaled its willingness to implement a temporary ceasefire, Russia's reluctance to agree without additional preconditions has presented a significant hurdle. If a ceasefire is established, Zelenskyy suggested that monitoring could be enhanced through satellite data and joint intelligence efforts with Ukraine's allies, emphasizing that air defense protections must be 100% given the persistent threat of renewed Russian aggression. Moreover, he acknowledged that one of the most challenging aspects of any potential agreement will be the status of Russian-occupied territories, firmly stating, "We do not recognize the occupied territories as territories of Russia and we will never recognize them." The geopolitical stakes are high, with Trump reportedly alluding to potential territorial concessions during discussions, particularly regarding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, a site currently under Russian control. This facility, the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, has been a focal point of discussions as both nations navigate the murky waters of ceasefire talks. Compounding these challenges, Zelenskyy recently expressed optimism about the possibility of ending the war, stating, "Right now we have a good chance to end this war quickly and secure peace." He urged the US and its allies to maintain pressure on Moscow, particularly as he believes Putin may seek to delay any ceasefire agreement for as long as possible. If there is a strong response from the United States, they will not let them play around, he warned, highlighting the critical role of international support in the ongoing conflict. In a separate but related development, the issue of Ukraine's territorial integrity remains contentious, with the Kremlin demanding that Kyiv cede significant land. Zelenskyy has indicated that discussions on territorial disputes will be necessary following any ceasefire, with potential implications for Ukraine's security guarantees and economic support from Western allies. He noted that achieving comprehensive air defense capabilities will be essential for any peace deal to be effective. As the situation unfolds, the international community remains vigilant, with leaders like UK Labour Party leader Keir Starmer urging global allies to bolster their commitments to Ukraine and apply continued pressure on Putin. With millions displaced and countless lives disrupted by the war, the hope for a peaceful resolution contrasts sharply with the grim realities on the ground. As diplomatic efforts continue, it remains to be seen whether the U.S. will heed Zelenskyy's call for sanctions and how Russia will respond to the mounting international pressure. The coming days are likely to be pivotal in determining the trajectory of the conflict and the potential for a lasting peace in the region.